So what's been happening over the week this far? We've had over 80 people signed up, and we've had around 20 people is kind of the average attendance, which is actually fantastic, because when I thought of co-production week, one of the, well, I didn't think of it, it was the national thing, but when I thought about doing something for co-production week, the agenda was about making co-production a bit more visible, but I didn't expect that there would be so many people interested. So that's all about you. So thank you very much for that. And thank you for coming on the journey. I had no sense of feeling like a girl in a boat, to be honest with you, but I was looking for an image that kind of captured some of the richness of the conversations we've had. And I quite like the idea of this sort of intriguing looking building with lots of turrets and spaces for people to have chats and conversations. So there was some trepidation when I started this, but you've all been so fantastic. I think it's really started something, so I'll be looking forward to keeping that going as we continue. Oh, here we are, I've messed it up. Right. Here's a flavour of the conversations. What's next? Okay. Right, so just for my own personal view, I really like this quote from W. Barnett Pierce. I don't know what the W stands for. But I'm somebody who's quite curious, which is probably why I'm kind of in the job I'm in. But it has certainly taken me a long time to unlearn the art of using questions as clubs with which to bludgeon other people. Now, I'm sorry about the kind of graphic nature of bludgeon, but I think one of the things we really wanted to do this week was to create conversations. So put some structure and space in for people to have a meaningful conversation, but not to kind of put people on the spot, although I know I've done that a bit, but not to kind of ask people questions all the time, because not everybody likes to think on their feet. Not everybody has the answer. Not everybody responds to that. So co-production is more than just about asking questions, although there is, you know, there's obviously a role for questions. So I wanted to create an environment where we could explore things together, but not be sort of interrogating one another, which I am a bit prone to, so I'm going to put my hand up to that. The quotes from this guy, as I said, he's a founding member of the Public Dialogue Consortium, and I like the idea that we've been in dialogue this week and that we can continue the dialogue as we move out of this week into our other lives. Not that you've all been doing this all week, I know you've been in your own lives. And this guy also wrote Making Social Worlds, a Communication Perspective. And that's really what we're doing this week. We're making a social world. I will shut up in a moment. I'm quite tired of my own voice. One of the other things that co-production means to me is being able to sit with the silence, allowing people to think and reflect. It's okay to take that time. It doesn't always have to be a performance. It's okay if I can't click through the slides really slickly, because it creates a bit of a space. And actually for some people, it's absolutely critical to be able to join a conversation or a dialogue and sit quietly, maybe not say anything, but just be present and go away with what they've heard and do some thinking and come back at another time should they wish to. And I think that's important, because it's that inclusive dialogue that we want to create to do co-production. When I was first in the role 6 months ago, and I did a mapping exercise which took quite a while, and I looked at all the possibilities for co-production in Southend that were going on, and I captured them, and then I looked at things that were causing those projects to be enabled or those things to be held up, and I tried to map complexity, which is impossible obviously, but I had a bit of a go, and I came up from that mapping exercise with 3 things that are common under the enabler and the barrier. So these three things can be both an enabler and a barrier. And I think that's really interesting for co-production, because you can flip it either way depending on how you approach co-production, how you do the work. And I think when you look at them, you think, well, that, gee whiz, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? But what this week has shown me is that this is not new information. You all came up with these things yourselves when we've done various activities and conversations over the week. If anyone's interested in how you map complexity, there's a thing called Kumu, which I use, and it's quite interactive. So if anybody wants to look at that, let me know. So I said I'd tell you a little bit about what we were talking about. These are things that have come up. These aren't things that were prompted. Those of you who've been in some of these discussions might recognise your contributions. We've talked about the size of litter bins. That one's big enough to fit a squirrel in if you look carefully. People feel that the size of litter bins down on the seafront particularly are not sufficient. There's a whole takeover of the Kersal plan by some of the community in a great way. I don't know if you've heard about that, but that was something that came out of a conversation on Saturday morning. We talked about transport, about getting to school safely. We've talked about green spaces. We didn't specifically talk about the bandstand, but there we are. In our mental health session, we talked about lots of different things, because, you know, mental health happens in life. Everyone has mental health and well-being, and it's a spectrum. So we touched on lots and lots of aspects that affect mental health and how we live our lives. And I think that's a conversation that's carrying on. Hopefully the next one will be in August. And we've talked about people, as you would expect. I'm just going to take a moment and just check the chat to see if I'm missing anything. Okay, so people asking for the complexity map, and people saying, just could we make sure we're on mute? Okay, so we've talked about the place of Southend with the bins and the buildings and all of that, but we've also talked about people and how we live our lives. And this is a great graphic because it is of Southend and it's of people living their lives. And that's really what co-production is about, is making sure that we're all involved in making sure that we can live the best life in the way that we want to. And this is just a capture from some of the work we did in the principles and behaviours session. So I'll just give you a minute to look at that. And again, this is a public board, which I can send the link to for people who'd like to. I'm on the free version, so it can get a little bit messy and muddly, but I'm happy to send out the link and people can add to it, add comments. Does anybody remember doing this work? Does anybody remember any of this stuff? We've got the rubbish bins there. I've labelled up the green ones are the ones that link to the enablers and the barriers. And these are not things that I have said. These post-it notes are things that everybody who's been to different sessions, not everything, but particularly the principles and behaviours sessions. And I've just marked the green ones because, as I said, they're the enablers and the barriers. Peter can't. Okay, so some people are having some difficulty seeing it. So what I can do is I will make sure that you can get onto the link and see it in the actual board, and then you can make it larger or smaller. So apologies for that, it's not terribly readable. Can people see that at all? Because I can just go directly to the board. Would that be easier? Do people want me to go to the board? Tell me in the chat.
Fine as it is.
I don't know if it's just me, but I can actually zoom in and out of it and do close-ups.
Is that you, Sasha?
Yeah.
Okay. It's difficult for me to zoom in for people if I don't, because they can't see, so they can't say, well, can you zoom in on this or that? So I think the best thing is if I send out the links and then people can explore it themselves. I mean, I could talk about this board for ages, but we can come back to this if we want to, but I'm just going to move on. Okay, so for those of you that came to the session on Saturday morning, I said I'd kind of update people from session 1 to session 2, but because the people on Saturday morning had such a rich session with a very particular set of ideas, I didn't really want to be putting out the idea that the work is done, you know. I will share the ideas between the groups when we've completed both sessions. I think I just wanted to give you all the opportunity to do this bit again. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to think about what makes a good life for you in Southend-on-Sea. But if you don't live in Southend-on-Sea, just think about it from the point of view of where you live. And you don't have to speak it. You don't have to do it at all. It's just an invitation. We can draw it. No one sang it on Saturday. Some of us did draw it. You can type it in the chat box. This is a Makaton image here. So I think it's same, different. Is that same? I can't remember. Same, different. I can't remember my signing. Maybe somebody will be able to help me out. I'm just going to come off this screen because I find it a bit, what's the word? Disorientating when I can't see people. So are people happy to do that little exercise? Think about what makes a good life in Southend-on-Sea for you. Write it, think it, type it in the chat box, whatever you like. I'm just going to turn my camera off, have a sip of water.
Sorry, is that what makes a great Southend, like what's great about Southend right now, or what's great about Southend that's going to happen, or we hope is going to happen?
I'd go with how it was on at the weekend, Emily. So exactly the same thing as we did.
Ah, okay.
Yes, Emily, I mean, you can interpret it really however you feel you want to. So it's what makes a good life for you in Southend-on-Sea or wherever you live, and it might be how that is now or how you'd like it to be in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Okay, so people have started to type in the box. Peter has said community, recognising that it is a local feature and largely self-made through involvement and seaside environment. Thank you, Peter. Benedict said, a good life is one that has the basics, enough to eat and a comfortable place to live, and the opportunity to learn new things and help other people. Thank you, Benedict. That reminds me of the 5 ways to well-being, actually. Don't know if people know about those. Sasha said, I think it might be to do with the Miro board. We just need to make sure that we're making the distinction between equality and equity. Do you want to say a bit more about that, Sasha? I don't feel like I can speak to that properly at the moment. If you don't, that's fine, because I realise I'm asking a question, which I said I'd avoid, but I don't feel
That's
like
fine. I just think if I was an artist, I'd be drawing a mum, a middle child, and a baby at the fence. If you're being equal, everyone gets 3 boxes so they can see over the top of it. But obviously, there's 3 boxes, 1 for each. But obviously, the baby needs all 3 so he can see. Mum and the middle kid don't need it. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think it does. I think I need to think about it. I think I need one of those quiet, silent minutes to catch
So
up.
equal is 1 box each.
Yeah,
Equity is the baby needs all 3 boxes so he can see over the fence.
gotcha.
Yeah.
That explains that.
So treating everybody equally is not the same as making sure everyone has equity or equity of opportunity to see over that fence. I love it. Jeff's explained the Macathon, same, fingers together, different fingers moving up and apart. I hope I've got that right. Does anybody have any pictures to show us? Oh, Emma. Show us your picture, Emma.
I'm just trying to cut and paste it. Give me a minute.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'll show you it.
I think Joanne Webb might have one.
Yeah. First one's a little bit of a cheat. I'm just describing. I've drawn the other lady thing meant quickly.
So we've got, is that people, family, Joe? What have we
That's
got?
what the other lady was describing about the 3 boxes.
Ah, brilliant.
But then I'm cheating and just using my image from earlier in the week. It's community, because it is the most important thing around us. Without our communities, we haven't got the strength and power to actually make things work.
I'm just looking for my drawing from Saturday. Oh yeah, it's here. Here's one I made earlier. It's so terrible, I don't even want to hold it up.
Your camera's off, Jess.
Thank you, Emma. I'm only buying time for you. That's upside down. I've written on it since. It's a safety net. That's what I had on my mind on Saturday, that idea that people create safety nets for other people. So when we hit a spot where we need a bit of support, there's something there so that we don't go through the gap. Emma, have I bought you enough time?
Can I share my screen?
Yeah, it's the green one at the bottom.
I don't know if you can all see that.
It just kind of pixelated out a moment ago.
Can you zoom in a little bit on it?
I'll try. Oh dear, this is just. Oh.
I can see, is that a tree, Emma?
Oh, there you go. Is that any bigger?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, so I just suppose I'm in this situation where I was born here and I have a lot of family here. Yeah, and I didn't like Southend for a long time. I went away to uni and lived away for 20 years and have come back. But actually, I'm really enjoying being here in my hometown again.
So thank you, Emma. That's the roots. So you've got your roots here, you've got a family tree, you've got opportunity, job. I see the sunshine and like-minded people. So that's
Yeah.
what makes a good life in Southend for you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's fantastic.
Jessica, I found that image. If you see on my background, if I move out of the way.
Yeah, so can everyone see Jeff's image? How good is that? The difference between equality and equity. That's going to stick in my mind from this week. Thank you.
Well done, Jeff. Thank you.
We got there. We got there in the end. I must admit, I think the hand-drawn one was much better.
Jeff, do you want to speak to your comment in the chat box?
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing is, and I have to say, it's quite nice to have it. It takes a bit of, on those post-it notes, did anyone notice the word brave was in there? And sometimes you do need to be quite brave to allow space to have conversations like this where, you know, we have a bit of time and space. But I think we tend to strategize a lot. We create strategies about things that we want to achieve and places we want to be. But I sometimes think we don't sufficiently look at values, if you like, and the way we want to be with each other. I think some of the things that we've learned this week from these co-production sessions about allowing space for meaningful conversations will be enhanced by us recognizing that the quality of the conversation and the quality of the spaces that we inhabit with people are actually really important. And we get too focused down on the product, the service we're trying to commission, the thing we want to achieve. But actually, in order to be in a good co-productive space with citizens and service providers together, we actually have to do a lot of focusing on how we want to be with each other. And so I was talking about the thing about respect and about, you know, being in the same place and recognizing that we have the power to be part of the solution we want to see as citizens, I think is quite key. I can't read my old comments, so I'm guessing that's something, I said something like that.
Yeah, you talked about that. You said that we're going to come up to the Southend 2050 ambitions in a bit, but you said they're great. There's something for me about the way we are with each other, trusting, respecting and valuing all people, seeing ourselves as having the power to make a difference for our friends, neighbours and community. So I think that's really kind of eloquent, and it speaks to that power and the relationships and how we are with each other and communicate. I was just thinking, Peter, if you want me to give you a guided tour of the Miro board, I can stick around when we end if you want me to, or we can set up a separate Zoom. It's not, you know, we don't have to do it in this session, but I just want to make that available if you'd like to. Ileana and Tracy have also talked about safety, a safe, welcoming place. And Eugene, hello, you've talked about the variety of opportunities, organisations and places to be are generally what makes life in Southend great, especially for the mental well-being of people. And you talk about the seafront itself is what makes Southend so special. Roger, Southend for me, friends and family, memories of growing up. Southend's great because it's got a good mix of communities, and again the sea and the open spaces come up. Rachel Roach has said a variety of places to meet friends and community. James, the opportunity to know people and the opportunity to make a good life for yourself and for others. and to know others will help you and appreciate your help. Oh, I mean, I like all of them. They're all fabulous, but I like that kind of, that reciprocity piece. You know, I can help you, you can help me. That's kind of key to co-production. There's so much here, I can't read them all out, everybody. Can I just give you a minute to have a look? Otherwise I'll just be droning on, and I don't want to.
Jessica, can I just add a comment to amplify the point I was trying to make about community? I have heard so many people complain that there's no community, but they as individuals hide behind their own doors and don't go out and take part in community. But a lot of those barriers have been broken down during the COVID time, when people have been obliged, encouraged, and received offers about help and assistance. So that, you know, that's the point which I think we need to encourage as a society, is for people to go out and meet with other people and find the common ground and create community, because it's only that way the community can be engendered.
Thank you, Peter.
Jessica, sorry, Peter, I just want to say I think that's a really brilliant point that you've made, and I think there's something very important around in our communities. We tend to think that self-sufficiency and independence are the objective. They are the thing that we should be aiming for. When we're self-sufficient and don't need other people, we've actually achieved the pinnacle of being within the community. But actually, Peter, I think what you're speaking to there is the fact that we should recognise that being able to recognise when we need help and support, and being willing and able to offer that help and support, that is actually the what we should be aiming for, isn't it? And I think in a way it's that thing about seeing ourselves as you know, changing between givers of support, receivers of support, givers of support, and constantly flowing between those two things. And you're quite right that the pandemic has placed us four square in that place, hasn't it? We've all had to be there, and I think that's a great lesson to learn.
The great challenge is going to be to sustain that cooperative community interest. I was going to say when we get back to normal, but I'm not sure normality ever exists now. So we've got to create a new normal, including community life.
Thank you for those contributions. I think what's been really interesting over the events that I've been to, which is all of them, is that community exists no matter what is happening. You know, between people, whatever is between people is somehow, yes, of course it is influenced by things like COVID, but what's been really interesting is even when people have been invited to talk about or think about COVID, people haven't really, almost. It's been mentioned, and of course it has an impact, but the community links and bonds, the social connections, however they show up for people, the things that make it good, almost seem to... Sorry, can everyone hear someone laughing, living their good life in the next room? How embarrassing. Anyway,
It's not my life.
I'm going to go and tell them to be quiet. Could somebody have a look at, because there's loads of good stuff in there and I don't want to miss it. I'm just going to tell them to pipe down a moment. Hold on.
Don't tell them off for being happy.
Okay, they've been told off nicely. Does anybody want to really read out their comment? Because if I read them all out, it'll be no fun. Does anybody want to read their comment out before we move on? I'll take that as a no. So I'm going to share my screen. I think, do you know, guys, I think we might get out before 3:30 today. So that would be nice. Although it's lovely spending time with you. Right, am I sharing? I'm sharing. Thumbs up if you can see that. So if you're here as an expert by profession or expertise, so either a voluntary role or your paid role, how do you see your role in creating a good life for residents of Southend? I don't know if that will be the same answer or a different answer, and whether it links to Southend 2050, but that's not a critical thing to think about. I just kind of wanted to explore that a little bit with people in the room. So if you're here as a community member, but a lot of you are volunteers in other things, maybe just change hats a little bit and think, you know, is it the same or different? And what am I going to bring to creating a good life for other people in Southend? And for those of you who don't want to answer that question or want something else to think about, could I just ask you to type in the chat box if you've heard of Southend 2050? So if you have, could you type yes? And if you haven't, could you type no, please? Just so we can get a feel of who's aware of it and who isn't. So if you've heard of it, yes, I have. If you haven't, no, I haven't. That would be great. Oh, you're all typing. I need to get down the bottom. Oh, so a lot of people have heard of it. That's brilliant. So Tracy Thompson has said, I'm assuming this is in the professional role, Tracy, to help send families have a voice and make changes to services they want or need. And that links to the active and involved outcome in Southend 2050. Sasha from YMCA has said 2050 fits perfectly into our work, helping to give young people a voice and become active citizens. Benedict is here from commissioning. So the area he's responsible for is commissioning, and the responsibility is twofold. First, creating a team that focuses on listening and doing with rather than doing to. And second, prioritising the most vulnerable in our work. Joanne said, for me, it's about having a voice and using it when others might not be able to use their own, be that parents, breastfeeding mothers, or the local SEND community. Roger said to support residents however they need in order for them to create or drive the changes they want to see. And Benedict said, commissioners have a very loud voice in planning and thinking about social care. We need to use our voice to amplify those who are less heard. That's very true. And Emily says she'd really like to take an active role in the development of a Cursor project so that we can make sure it's what youth want. Emily, I know I've got to send a follow-up email around that, but I just wanted to get this session wrapped up before I did that, and then I will do the 2 sessions in one, because I've sent a lot of emails this week and people might be sick of me by now. Thank you for those contributions, everybody. It's really interesting and helpful to hear what you're saying and not to assume that we know, or that it will be the same if you're a resident as in your professional role. And then, I mean, this feels like too many questions actually, given my opening slide. So don't answer it if you don't want to. But I guess I just wanted to kind of wrap up the sessions on a positive note, a pride and joy note, which is one of the themes for Southend 2050. I put an issue, but that's the wrong word really. Has anyone looked at the Southend Borough Council Instagram page, which kind of focuses around pride and joy? I can't see people. Is everyone nodding? Don't know what people are doing. I kind of would like for next year, maybe, if people are interested, that we do something that's joyful and proud of Southend. That's not the whole piece of co-production work. But co-production can be fun too, and it can create positive outputs and outcomes. So is there anything that people would like to take forward? I know Emily is talking about Kersal, and that might be something that they want to take forward. It's a very big, ambitious project. So I'm going to be interested to see where that goes. And this is what's actually so nice about this week, is I've started to kind of, the conversations are just going, you know, they're mushrooming, and I can't keep track of them all anymore, which is fantastic. I think Co-Production Week has kind of delivered on the conversation side of things. And for me, it's just about how I kind of support those to continue. Emma said to share skills, mentor, listen, witness, support others to have a voice. Jeff's talked about routinely designed and sometimes delivered by service users to meet needs. Benedict's got us doing a festival of co-production. So Benedict's come from Oxfordshire, which has got a great track record with co-production. So another thing that's come out of this week is that there's no English network for co-production. There's one in Wales and there's one in Scotland. But there's definitely a space around that. Peter's talking about the street pastors and helping others, and the Christian Love Thy Neighbours theme, so building community and churches offering their facilities for community activities. Benedict's fessed up and said he's stolen the idea, but I think all the best art is stolen. Is that what Picasso says? I don't know. So I kind of feel like we're doing it. We're starting it. We're starting those conversations. I just want to put a thank you slide up, really, to thank everybody. Because I couldn't have done it without all of you. And it's been a privilege. It's been scary, but it's been a privilege. I've really enjoyed it. I'm hearing you want a co-production festival to have as pride and joy next year. Thank you. And you want to take over the Kersal? We're done. No, I just need to read out thanks properly too. So I just want to thank you all. I want to thank A Better Start Southend, especially Rachel, Keely, Rhiannon and Jeff, and everybody from A Better Start who've been hugely supportive and have showed up to lots of sessions. So I couldn't name you all here, but you're much appreciated. Everyone at Southend Borough Council, especially Joanna, Stephen, Boggy and Tracy. I'm dispensing with surnames. You will have met each other along the way this week, I hope. Everybody at SAVS, especially Heather and Roger and Anthony and Christina and everyone in the community, our youth commissioners, Emily and Rachel and Eugene's here today, and Sasha, who's helped and will please correct me if I've missed anyone out, and all of our parent champions. And I think a special shout out to you, Joanne Webb, because I think you've actually been to every session, if that's correct, is it? And my mouse is frozen. I can't see anybody. I can't get rid of anything.
That means you're stuck here for the rest of the afternoon and we're just going to all sit and drink tea and eat biscuits and have a good old natter.
That would be lovely.
I'm up for that idea.
Jeff, could you do a few, providing everybody said what they need to say? I think there's so much in the chat and I'm just waffling on. I think if would you be so kind if I put you on the spot to wrap up whilst I sort out my technical issues?
Absolutely.
I
think it's been. I would probably also like to offer our thanks to Jessica, who, for those who've been in a number of these sessions, recognise she's chaired and facilitated every one of these sessions. So by no means a mean feat. And for those who spend a lot of time in the digital world at the moment on Zoom and Microsoft Teams and other platforms, who know it's quite tiring. Because you get very square-eyed and it's an awful lot, and Jessica's done brilliantly in chairing these sessions whilst facilitating them and reading the chats and everything, so it's absolutely brilliant. So I think we have the ability to do a clap with our little reactions, don't we? So a big clap to Jessica for everything she's done this all of these sessions. It's been really positive. Thank you for that. I think I would like to say that I think one of the important things is about giving space for conversation, in that what we deliberately did with these sessions and very much came from Jessica's idea is wanting to ensure that we felt we could create a safe space where people could share ideas and talk about their experience of co-productions, and those conversations have been very rich. I'm going to ask Jessica in a minute to tell us a little bit about what happens with the results of the conversations that we've had over these past weeks. It'd be really good to hear about that. But it's been a fantastic opportunity. There is something about where co-productive practice sits in our thinking. In that I often think, as commissioners and people who work in service land delivering services, that we think co-production is a process we go through in order to arrive at a destination. I'm looking at Benedict because he's probably far more experienced in this stuff than I am, but we have to do the co-production bit, you know, but actually co-production I think is as much about a culture of to who you turn to first when you're thinking of ideas and where those ideas are generated. Because I think if we see co-production as a box to tick, then I think we've already failed, because it should be the bread and butter, you know, the start, you know, middle and end of all of the processes that we go through. And I think the constant having of conversations like this, so we gradually raise awareness, so co-production, the concept of doing things together, citizens and services, becomes just the thing that is the common approach, the common language that we talk about is absolutely key. And so that's why I think it's been great that we've had this space just to have these conversations and to get ourselves very familiar and comfortable with the terminology. It's good to see a thumbs up from Benedict on that one. Good. I was talking some degree of sense then, at least. Jessica, do you want to tell us a little bit about where the results, because I know you've been diligently collecting all of the transcripts and the notes and everything. Where does it all sit afterwards? I apologise. I probably should know that.
Thank you, Jeff. Tracy Thompson, I think you're sharing your screen. It doesn't matter, but I just thought I'd let you know. So it's been incredibly rich, the things that have come out of it. And after each session, I've tried to send out the chat and any kind of follow-ups. But what we'll need to do, the recordings have also been recorded. And my understanding is, Roger, you'll have to correct me if I've got this wrong, but my understanding is they're just being trimmed because sometimes there's like sort of 5-10 minutes at the beginning people don't want to watch, and maybe a bit at the end. So we're trimming those, and then they're all, I think they're going onto a YouTube channel. Roger's nodding. So rather than me sending out big files of recordings. There will be one place where everything will be, and that will be available for anybody to watch and catch up. I'm not for 1 minute imagining everybody will watch all of it, because there's a lot there. The chats themselves, as Jeff said, are incredibly rich. They've got lots of things pinging out of them. So I will have to have I'm sending them out, but what I will do is have a look at analysing those and looking for themes, so that we can capture the themes, and perhaps look at doing an infographic or something to distribute. But it's just, what I want to do is just kind of keep the conversations going and support those conversations, and keep the introductions between people going, but not be bombarding people. So a definite follow-up is a mental health I think the mental health group said they would like to have a continued conversation. I think they were saying monthly, but definitely in August. And I think that was something the commissioning members, our commissioning colleagues were there on when we had the conversation last week, and they want to be part of that going forward. So there's that as well. I know the youth commissioners who are interested in green spaces and places and young people. There's a piece of co-production work they'd like to take forward, so I'm going to kind of connect in with them. Bigger bins, there'll be a little campaign about getting, larger bins, but it's been so rich and it's blown my mind a little. I'm gonna have to methodically work through and make it visible so that everybody can see. If you're the person that mentioned larger bins, that we make an invitation about other people who might be concerned about that, and then we take that forward, so that when we look back we can see that these weren't just things that people typed in chat boxes and I said, oh well, that's interesting, and nothing until next year. Everything that's been mentioned, I think, has to, you guys who've mentioned it, because it means something to you, you have to know where that went and what happened. And if it happened that nobody was interested in bins beyond that one day, that one comment, then you should kind of be able to see that, if you see what I mean. But actually, if it turns out that half of Southend think that bins are too small and 25 people get involved in that, then there'll be a different sort of conversation and different sort of work from that. So just to summarise, there will be a YouTube place where people can see all the videos. Everybody who's been in a session should receive at least the chat and the link to that. There will be an evaluation for the whole event that will go out, which I'd encourage you to please fill in, because that will help us identify where we could do better. And I know there are lots of places and spaces where we could, around accessibility, who's in the room, that sort of thing. So that's really important. People have been so generous sharing resources. Benedict's put in a link to 5 Ways to Wellbeing today. I think Sasha might have just set up a petition. I'm not sure. I don't know, but it's in the chat box.
It's the Youth Council petition for bigger bins on the beach. So share the love, please, people.
That's co-production for you people. We're talking about a network. Actually, you just blown, my mind is literally, but yeah, there'll be an evaluation. So all of the activities will be in one place. The SAV's website has a co-production page, so we can put all the links on there. I'm sort of negotiating perhaps a link into the You'll Say Southend site, so we can put things there. So it's not necessarily about having everything in one place, but it's about having things sort of reasonably accessible. And if you're in doubt, please just tell me, you know, I don't have this, or I need that, or you said you'd send that chat and I didn't get it. Please just let me know and we'll get it sorted out for you. Does that answer the question, Jeff? Okay. Benedict said he thinks it's about creating a shared culture of working and thinking together, and a network would be a really good way of supporting this. Jeff's broken out the capitals and an exclamation mark, so I know he means it. Please share the... Honestly, guys, I'm literally blown away by this. I believe in Southend. The people are great. That's why I wanted to apply for this job, even though it was a very nerve-wracking process. So a lot of things to do with co-production are nerve-wracking, and a lot of you have picked up on that during the week. But actually, this, when we get to this bit where we've created the space, where we're having the conversations, where that creative shared thinking's coming out, I mean, I just think it's amazing. And I hope you guys do too. And I hope now that we know who we are, we can take that forward into the different places and spaces to create those good lives for other people and ourselves and each other. And that's it. I said to Jeff when we were planning this, I said, if it all goes wrong, Jeff, I'll just press the leave meeting for everybody button. But nobody gave me the power, Jeff. I can't press it. I think Roger might be able to. No? So I'll stay here for a while. I think that's a wrap up, folks. Thank you for Co-Production Week 20, for coming to Co-Production Week 2020. And I'll see you all again soon. Thank you. And I shall stick around if anybody needs a guided tour of the Miro board. Thank you, Benedict. Thank you. Right, I've got to get the chat, which Jeff taught me to do, which I can now do. Save chat. Look, Roger, I can do it. Jeff taught me.
It's clever, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jessica,
Yeah.
I'm hanging around for that explanation.
Okay, well, hold on, Peter. So do you want me to, it's the Miro board you want me to show you, isn't it?
I think so, yes. I unfortunately only connected into this this week's events on Thursday, I think. Someone forwarded me the invitation, so I've been a bit slow connecting into it, which is a bit of a shame really, because I would have liked to encourage other people. And I think there is a lack of awareness of what's actually going on in the council, and the council's PR could do a good job in getting information out about what this whole process means and how the community need to take opportunities with it and from it.
Well, I think, Peter, I'm going to say I agree, but I also would say that I need to understand how we could do that better, by which I mean and that is a question in the evaluation. How did you hear about us? So that we can make sure that we're doing it differently and getting the word out more next year, because I think we did it on quite a tight turnaround this time, and that's not an excuse, and we would like to do better next time. So I'll show you the Miro board. I'll go back.
Jessica, I'm going to shoot off now.
Yeah.
But I say two things. One is, it's been brilliant, thank you. And we didn't properly thank you, so thank you for all the work you put in. And the second is, let's catch up later about the co-production network when you've paused and recovered from the whole of this the last week or so.
Yeah.
I can absolutely put from a commissioning point of view, having a co-production network is crucial, and we can put some resource, some people time into supporting that.
Thank you, Benedict. That's a brilliant outcome. Thank you so much for your support this week. Much appreciated. Thank you. Bye-bye. Right, I'm going to do share screen. See you later. Bye-bye. Right, Miro. Okay, sorry. That one. Is that one? Hold on. Right. Peter, can you see lots of like post-it notes?
I can even read some of them.
So I can go in and out of them.
Yeah.
Tell me what's the biggest, the right size for you?
Smaller is okay. I see more then. Bit smaller. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so you're going to have to forgive me because my memory's not quite working, but I know that we did a co-production principles and behaviours session, and this was kind of the output from it. So what I've tried to avoid is telling people stuff, but more about getting people to think about it for themselves. So one of the questions was, how do you want to feel when you're doing co-production work? So when you come to do, you know, talk about bins or whatever, or, you know, send or doing something to feed the homeless, how do you want to feel and how can we achieve that? And these are the things that people said. So these are some of the principles that people were talking about: trust, bravery, being open, equality. So Sasha talked about equity, didn't she? So I need to just add a sticky note to capture that. Oh no, I'm not doing the right thing on my... So if there's anything that you don't see that you want on here, you can tell me and I'll add it. So we had dial down the ego. Somebody said if you come into it with a very, you know, if you come into it from an ego place, it won't work. That kind of links to the humility. How we set the tone. So when you get people together, sometimes if you say the wrong thing or use a wrong word or you're not inclusive, you can kind of put people off. Being clear about what you're doing. So if you know that you're talking about the size of bins, for example, don't drift into something else, because if people think they're there for one thing and then they find out you're talking about something else, that can kind of switch them off a little bit. So if I send you the link to this, you could just explore it.
Yes, that'd be good, please. Yes.
Would that be all right? And was that everything I was helping you with?
I think so. Yes, I think I've got to catch up with a lot of what you've done this week, and I'll be able to do that once you distribute the link to all of the material once it's available. Yeah. I
will do that. It might not be. I don't think it'll be today because I'm slightly in someone else's hands.
No, I'm not. Don't get the impression that I'm rushing.
No.
Yes, I infer that there's been quite a lot of ideas created, and it takes time to put all that together.
I think we met at the interfaith group meeting before COVID.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's nice to see you.
I'm conscious of a reality that during the consultation about 2050, many of my generation thought 2050 I'll be dead. So it's not the kind of thing that I'm going to spend time on. But of course, there's all that sort of 30 years before we get to 2050, and a lot is going to happen in that time, and everybody has opportunity to contribute to all of that. And that's one message which I don't think is coming across out into community, that everybody is invited to take part, and everybody's contribution is going to be important. So you know, that's a message that I don't know whether it's appropriate to put on your board or not. But
no, let me do that now and get that right, because I have certainly been in quite a few events where people say exactly that and say, you know, 2050, I'm not going to be around. And although they say, but I've got grandchildren, that's not the first thing they say. And I know, you know, I do wonder about that and whether that's affecting the message connecting, or whether it's just that people haven't heard of it. But today most people had heard of it, but that was perhaps because of the audience. I don't know. So let me get this straight. What are you saying? Southend 2050, everyone, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Everybody has opportunity to contribute, and that those contributions will make a difference.
So do you think it's okay to keep calling it Southend 2050?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Do you think we lose people because it's called 2050?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm 50 now, and I'll probably, you know, I might be dead, you know. And I think as well with COVID, it sort of concentrates the mind a bit, and I think it's a shame that if the ambitions within it, which are sound and solid, and I think it's, I mean, I've been in a workshop where somebody's just walked out and said, I don't know what this has got to do with my volunteering. So what you make a great point, because you're saying everybody has the opportunity to contribute and those contributions will make a difference. But if the first thing that people hear is Southend 2050 and they leave the room, they're not going to hear that very important bit that you've just made. So I'd be interested in how we kind of work with that.
I think, yeah, there's a stronger point that that all citizens have an obligation to contribute. It's our community, it's our society. We make of it what we will, and if people are not willing to contribute, then they're not really in a position to complain if they don't like the outcome. I know that sounds very negative, but it is an experience over the years that most people are quite sceptical, and the change of theme within the council that council officers, council staff will want to do things with people rather than for people. It's a great empowerment in that, and it's something which needs to be laboured almost to ensure that there's an understanding of that change of attitude.
Are you feeling that change of attitude yet, or are you just hearing about it?
Well, I'm only hearing about it at the moment. I'm impressed that so many people within the council are brave enough to take that on board, because it is quite threatening to have people telling you what they want and you effectively being obliged to go and arrange it. People have got cynical people, and I'm on the boundary, just shrug their shoulders and wait and see. But of course, if you just wait and see, you're losing that opportunity to influence and contribute.
Yeah, and I have to say that Southend Borough staff have been one of the biggest groups of people who have attended the events, and I don't think that they are there because they're being told to be. So I think that's refreshing, and I think that is the start of them doing what they say they want to do. So I'm hoping that next year we'll have more examples of that having happened, and you'll be aware of them as well. So, right, so I've captured those, Peter. I'm sorry you didn't hear about this sooner. Was it Mark who let you know about this?
Yes, Mark asked me on an email, yes, yeah.
Okay, so I will send out the evaluations again. I'll do that this week. So next year we will definitely have to make sure that the communication of the event goes out in lots of different ways. But it will be great if people who have done something this year the penny will it'll mean something to the next year, and then you'll be able to kind of invite more people in, hopefully. Because I remember that meeting. I think I asked people that we met in, I asked people if they'd heard about co-production, and I don't think quite a few people hadn't, had they?
No, I don't think I'd heard about it in reality. And it's not a very descriptive term for anybody that's not sort of switched into it.
Exactly. So I think that's another issue that I need to work on between now and next year, is kind of getting the word out, because I can't really change the words. I could kind of give it a little tagline, so doing with, not for, or something like that. Just
yeah. That's a good idea. Okay, it sounds to me like something that it's a process in manufacturing.
A process in manufacturing?
Yes, that's what it sounds like to me. But there again, I'm I'm a person who's been in all realms of manufacturing, and it's not a production thing. Anyway, that's an aside. But yeah, that underlying theme, doing with rather than to or for.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Peter. I've got to come off in a moment because I know someone else is waiting to use this space.
Well, it's good. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for coming and for spending time. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Well, of course, that's, you know, we've got to encourage people to spend the time to find out. Otherwise, they'll never know.
Yeah, and we'll hopefully like to be part of the network, but that's for another day. But I've got your email now, so
Okay.
I'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye. Hello, is Eugene still here? No, gone.